Fingers all over the bloody shop. Anyway, good morning, people. I think we're recording. My fingers are going all over the bloody shop. Now, I shall start with my beautiful thing. And this is sort of accidental to what we were talking about, but you do realise that the whole country, in fact, the whole world is rocked this morning. Are you rocked? Because you need to be rocked this morning.
I'm not rocked. I'm not
Matt, you're not normal then. You're definitely not normal, because you should be rocked, and you should be rushing to one side or the other because of poor bloody Harry and Meghan.
I'm sorry, I fail to find any sympathy for a pair of rich kids who don't like what they're doing.
Well, we're not going to get into that argument, because I actually, as you know, get a lot of sympathy with people who get literally shut in the house with their passport and their driving license and their keys taken off them, and they can't even get out to find a bloody counsellor or a psychotherapist when they need one.
Having said that, they are now out.
They are, thank the gods. So that's fine, and hopefully they will be fine and everything will be marvellous, and that's all.
I just object to anyone putting them on a pedestal and going, but they're superior beings. Bollocks.
That I completely do. I wouldn't have thought that either of them really particularly wanted to be thought superior beings either. But
probably not. Harry possibly inculcated somewhere at childbirth.
Well, he did sort of say, you know, I was born into this racket. But he is actually getting out of it, and I do totally appreciate Meghan calling it the firm.
Oh, yeah.
And Matthew, eat your heart out. You can't beat this lot. Yes. So, you know, sort of great feelings about them. But what started us off last week, and we'll go into it in a minute, because I know what beetled me off, and you know what beetled you off. We both sort of felt we were getting all ups and downsy about hierarchy and ownership and poverty. And of course, you know, so we decided to talk about hierarchy, ownership and poverty on the morning after Harry and Meghan. So make sure you are rocked, and that, you know, that this is a fundamental issue for the whole bloody universe. Which takes me into my first sort of point about hierarchy, is everybody, as soon as there is one, starts to tell you what you ought to think.
Yes. And the moment they do, my hackles go up and I go, right.
I'm not going to think that, whatever it was. I quite agree.
Somebody's trying to put me in a box. I'm not going. I won't.
But look at how it's done, people. I mean, you watch an advert and you see this sort of lovely couple with this lovely quiet baby and dad's there changing its nappy or whatever. And you think, oh, that's what parenthood is like. I want it.
No, it's not. Been there, done that. It's not like that at all.
And so then you watch, you know, one of the Peloton things, you know, that's a horribly expensive thing where you leap on a bicycle or run on a treadmill with all your mates on Zoom or something. Really? And but you need it because you won't look like these gorgeous looking people if you don't do that sort of thing, or if you don't buy whatever it is that they want you to buy. Or if you don't eat whatever they want you to eat, because, you know, fiber is good for you. And what else is good for you? Sort of like cornflakes has got everything you need for the day. And whatever, you know, all this kind of shit. Or you really need superfoods. So you must go and buy extremely expensive, full of air miles shit blueberries, instead of going for a walk on the moor and getting some bilberries.
You're reminding me why I haven't owned a TV for 20 years.
I can't exactly say I own one, but my husband likes sitting in front of it, watching it.
Yes, and it spills over, doesn't it?
And I haven't actually managed to persuade him to get himself a pair of headphones, or even borrow mine. I'm not actually sure that is going to ever work out. So, you know, A, he turns it down, B, he doesn't have it on all the time, thank the gods. And C, I have pretty well learned that providing it's not too loud, I can actually shove it into the background. But on the other hand, it is interesting for something like this to watch how people are manipulated.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's very skillfully done.
This Goebbels eat your heart out. He was a bloody amateur compared to everything on TV and every politician nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Total bloody amateur.
Yeah.
Is it?
I came across a fascinating little, very sarcastic piece on Facebook this morning.
Oh, lovely. You send it to me.
I will have to do that. It was from a mutual friend of ours, John King, up in the Highlands. But he'd posted shared a fascinatingly sarcastic little snippet, encouraging people to donate to Boris and Carrie's crowdfunder to redecorate Downing Street.
Yeah. What?
£105,000 a year annual income the man's got, and he can't afford some wallpaper and a brush. I'm sorry, he can just F off with that one.
Well, I just hope, to be quite honest, that he never walks in front of me when I'm driving.
Well, you know, you're not supposed to dodge when things step in the road in front of you.
No.
They keep saying that.
I know.
You're not supposed to swerve to avoid badgers, and I'm damned if I'm going to do it to avoid a politician.
Certainly not that one.
No, well, any of them actually. But
quite.
To make their living from exploiting other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have opinions on this subject.
So it's like, what? And you're back down to do you remember, not very long ago, possibly only 10 years, if that, the duck house?
Oh God, yes. Or the moat cleaning operation. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and this actually sort of, that went quite ballistic and viral, and possibly might have started doing some good, except that everybody managed to sit on it again.
The same people are still there, still in government.
Exactly. And this is like the same people who took Meghan's passport and driving license and keys off her and wouldn't let her go and find a psychiatrist.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. And you get it as soon as you get people up there, people in the middle, and people on the bottom. There was a beautiful, oh God, John Cleese was with them, and it's two blokes, and there was a short, fat one and a taller one who were a comedy duo, and they were brilliant.
Well, it could have been Eric and Ernie.
I think it was Eric and Ernie.
Yes.
And of course, John Cleese is about 10 feet tall. I've actually been in the cheese shop next to him. He was a great guy. He really is. And he really is about 10 feet tall. He's like, And anyway, then there's, can't remember which one. There's the sort of normally height one, of sort of 5'11", 6 foot. And then there's the little short, fat one. And they're doing this hierarchy skit. It's very short. And so John Cleese is standing there going, well, I'm superior to all of these people because, you know, I'm so and so and so and so, and I'm a ruler. And so then middle one, Eric or whoever it is, says, well, I'm inferior to him, but I'm superior to him. And then Ernie at the bottom goes, I know my place.
Yes.
You think about that, people. You think about that. Would you?
It is based on such artificial concepts.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm taller, therefore I'm better. I'm male, therefore I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm
the royal family, so I'm better. I'm a politician. I'm Boris, you know.
Yes.
Or I'm Keir Hardie. It's not Keir Hardie. He was quite good. Keir Starmer.
Yes.
And or whoever I am. Or, you know, I'm the landlord, so I'm better than you. You're just a surfy tenant who pays me money.
Yes.
I'm the bank manager, so I know how to tell you how to spend your money.
Curiously, mine have stopped trying.
Mine still throw, you know, advertising at me every time I sign on just to find out if somebody's paid me something or I'm paying somebody else something.
Yes.
Bug off.
Yes.
But who doesn't doesn't tell you what you want, what you're doing. You know, you go to the doctor and the doctor sort of, which I actually quite appreciate to some extent. Doctor says, well, you know, if I was you, Miss Sentier, I would sort of seriously think about that. And did you know about so-and-so and so-and-so? Now that's quite useful because I might not have. So, you know, you have to sort of like take this on board. Is the person talking from real experience, which you might not have? And are they reasonably polite about it? And you know, is it something you want to know? Or are they telling you to buy something, do something, how to feel? You know, like Harry and Meghan, dreadful interview. You're bound to feel awful and hurt and upset. Oh, got to tell you this one. I saw something on the news this week, I can't remember where, and anyway, it's an article about Harry and Meghan, and at the bottom of it, there's 2 adverts for the Samaritans, and you go,
Yeah.
And another thing, people, remember from Diana how her phone calls were tapped and some of them were turned off and all this sort of thing. So probably Meghan couldn't even ring the Samaritans.
Probably not.
So you sort of go, and this is who we look up to? This is who we're supposed to curtsy to? Watch me. That's my curtsy. So it's like we really need to look at hierarchy and think about hierarchy because, okay, there's a tsunami and lots of people are hurt and villages knocked down and probably lots of animals are hurt, but you never hear about that. And so everybody's shocked and heartbroken. Are you shocked? Are you sure you're being shocked? Because you've just been told to be shocked.
I will be honest here. I watched Boxing Day tsunami as it came in on the TV and thought, good God, what an amazing natural spectacle.
Well, I did too. And the one thing that stuck me after that is that you get sort of 2 seconds of the amazing spectacle. And then you get, this is costing $150 billion. Excuse me, it's costing a lot of lives.
Yes. Which is more important, 150 billion pieces of paper with $1 written on it, or 250,000 people who are dead?
Exactly.
And goodness knows how many animals.
And trees and plants and
Yes.
all those sea creatures that were washed up and drowned in air on the beach.
Yeah, yeah. None of which is ever mentioned.
Yeah.
It always comes down to those little pieces of paper, who, frankly, as far as I can tell, don't seem to care.
They certainly don't care. In general, I don't know, I cannot think of one politician in the world, possibly one, who actually cares.
It's difficult because they're very good actors and they will say they care.
Yeah, but you never listen to what somebody says. You watch their body language and then you think about what they do for a living and where their money comes from.
Most of them are quite good at lying in body language too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, pretty good.
Careful training and preparation.
It sort of loses its thing when you've had the training yourself.
Yes, it does.
And yes, I have. So watch it, guys, because I can see it. But yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah, this whole hierarchy thing washes over into every aspect of life.
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we can't go out in lockdown, but it's fine for a government advisor to drive the length of the country and back.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever done. He was never fined.
Yeah. And he wasn't the only one. There were loads of them.
No, he wasn't. Still, a couple of SNP ministers did get their knuckles rapped. Mm-hmm. The government advisor up here did actually resign. And
we weren't allowed to meet in groups of more than 6, and then it got down to less than that. But at the same time, the local shit-ass hunt came past me with 60 people. Yes, like a bloody hounds.
Yes. You know, not more than 30 people to a wedding, but not more than 15 at a funeral.
But however many you fucking like to go out and torture and kill a fox.
Yes. So it's very much, it does remind me that the word privilege means private law.
Thank you. I was hoping you would do that because you're really good at it. Did you know that? That's what the word privilege means. Private law.
And it actually does mean there is one law for you peasants, and then there's another set of laws for us important people.
Yep. Another interesting little thing on that note. I don't know how many of you have ever bothered to read the American Bill of Rights thing.
Yes.
You know, that has umpteen fucking amendments that you're not supposed to, or you are supposed to use. Anyway, that it actually came from our own Bill of Rights from, was it William and Mary? Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, somewhere around there. And anyway, and it says, "We the people." Now, if you actually look into this, I've got the sort of husband who you really ought to take down the pub for the idiotic quizzes, because as long as you put him on the right subject, he can bawl for England on it for hours. Yeah. And anyway, so he's also got some kind of relationship to President Adams, sort of umpteen times removed or something, and you think, really? God, I don't think I'd boast about that. But anyway, he only laughs about it, so it's fine. Anyway, so he knows that we the people, it didn't mean any of the native people.
No.
It didn't mean any of the servants that the people brought over in those ships. It didn't mean the women. And it didn't mean anybody who didn't own land or hadn't taken, stolen land from the Indians and the local people.
What it meant was we the rich white men.
Yes. And it still does.
Absolutely.
Go look.
That's the root of an awful lot of America's problems at the moment, is that the rich white dudes are not happy about losing it.
Yeah, exactly. And they have conned their people into thinking we the people means any human being in America.
Well, I think
probably not foreigners.
At the root of it, what the problem is that the rich white men still think it is the rich white men. The rest of the population are a little peeved about this.
They are getting more and more peeved about this.
They really need to get
I just hope they have some kind of guts and gumption to, get off their backsides and go out and just slaughter the bastards. But I'm awfully like that, I'm afraid. Just don't ever give me a Gatling gun.
They never finished their civil war properly.
Well, the thing is, the Civil War wasn't about black people. It was about keeping the Union together.
A lot of it was about rich white men wanting privilege.
And it in a sense, but the thing that Lincoln was fussed about was holding all the states of the Union together and not getting a load ceding out.
Which is exactly where we are in the middle of things with Scotland and England at the moment.
Exactly. Don't go away. We need you. We need your money. Remember that 250 billion trillion tsunami.
Yeah.
And
also Scotland has an awful lot of the UK's natural resources.
Not that we've got that many. You've got them. We haven't.
Yes. Well, I'm in Scotland, so.
Bleeding foreigner, go away. That's what I want to do. Only let me go, she says.
Yeah. The amusing thing is that the propaganda from down south has now reached the pitch where it actually fails to gain much traction with Scots because we've heard it so often it doesn't sink in anymore.
Hopefully that's true, because I met a neighbour the other day who apparently thinks that Nicola Sturgeon is a Nazi.
Yeah, this is the thing. All that Westminster propaganda is now beginning to bite into the English people.
And it's making us just like, I mean, I don't go out much and I don't miss it in the slightest. I mean, I live in lockdown most of my life anyway, and go out when I want to, which is usually to the top of a hill on my own, or with you or, a dear friend or something. But so I don't necessarily hear it. And I could be political. I have been, but at the moment I'm not, because there's nothing to vote for. But it's like, it's really messing us up.
Yes,
And
absolutely it is.
does anybody think about why they want us completely fragmented on this?
Well, that one goes back to the Romans, doesn't it? Divide and rule.
We'll look after you, calm down, have some footy and some popcorn, and you'll be fine.
Smoke and mirrors, bread and circuses. The
Bread
Romans
and circuses is it. So we're going to let you out of lockdown, and then you can all go and create havoc on the fucking beaches and ruin Wistman's Wood on Dartmoor and everything like that, and then you'll be happy. Calm, 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 and then we'll shut you up again.
Yes. Yes. Well, in the meantime, we're going to sting you for a big tax raise to pay for all this stuff that we failed to do for you because we were busy giving millions in, well, frankly, pissing it up against the wall by giving it to people unqualified.
And generally messing up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's...
And while you're at it, we'll clap for you, but we won't give you any money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good stinger, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
That is a really...
to be honest, I've seen that one coming all along. The moment the politicians were like, let's clap for the NHS, it's like, oh, enjoy it, you won't get anything else.
No, no. And somebody else, not the same neighbour, but another idiot who stood on my doorstep for 10 minutes, was telling me that actually the nurses are fine because they've actually had 12% pay rise over the past 3 years.
No, they haven't.
And you sort of go, actually, whether or not they have is minutiae, and I don't give a shit. So what? What have they just done? Have you met any nurse? I have, because I'm very sick. Have you met any nurses recently? Have you seen the state they're in?
I have friends who've worked in the NHS. The Scottish NHS is a different beast to the English NHS, and in somewhat better shape.
Yes.
Because
despite what you hear from Westminster.
Well, apart from anything else, the SNP, whatever else they may be, are committed to keeping the NHS public. So we do not have American healthcare firms running any of it.
No. You did know you had that, don't you? Yeah. Well, you do.
You should know by now. 500 million, I think, in contracts to NHS.
That's your money.
Went out to American healthcare firms.
And that's your money, remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But in Scotland, it is ring-fenced. We do pay our nurses better. We have more of them. These things may be connected.
Just possibly.
Yes. Our doctors don't leave at quite the same rate. There is still a huge amount of burnout.
Because there is just...
There's too much work.
There is not enough being done for people to get them... So that they have to go along and complain to the doctor because there isn't anybody else.
Yes.
And so what we're actually talking about here, what we're saying here, and it's actually very important for anybody who's following the Deer Trods or any other spiritual path, you know, Wiccan, witches, you know, any of the shamanic paths, anything, is for goodness sake, get your head out of this thing that there are people who know anything. There are some, but you need to find out.
The other side of that is there is nobody who is better than you.
Absolutely.
And I include trees, plants, bugs, viruses, dogs, cats, whatever.
You know,
equal.
You know what you are, and I am just as important as the COVID-19 virus, whichever variation it's on.
Yeah.
And the virus is just as important as me.
Absolutely, yes.
And I really, truly believe that, and so do you, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So we have been conned into this. Well, how long have we been conned into this? How many thousand years? Roughly-ish.
When was it we started having hierarchies and leaders? And
when we started farming.
Yes.
Which is 10,000 years ago. Because then it was my field, your field. I want your field, I'll kill you for it.
Yes.
My
You don't
wife.
get the same effect when it's, that herd of antelope just wandered through the valley and out the other end. It's not the same thing at all.
No. And you follow them if you need to.
Yes.
But you don't get in their way. You don't own them. They're not yours.
No.
And when they walk from the space where you currently are into the space where another family is, there isn't even my territory or your territory, because your life is about moving.
It's
so you're all moving around. Yeah. And you may sort of stay roughly in, I'm roughly in Shropshire come Wales, and I may well not have spent most of my life going that far out of it. And by that far, I mean sort of 100, 200 miles. I don't mean 10. Because people walked and traveled and a hell of a lot. It just took you a bit longer.
Yeah.
But it was never mine. I mean, the people who probably say this best nowadays are the Australian Indigenous people. They own nothing. None of us own anything. You don't own your house. You are guardian to it for a while.
This is a tender subject. I'm currently negotiating the ownership of my house with the rats.
Ah, right, okay. And that wasn't quite what I meant.
No, they think they own it.
Yeah, well, your species wars happening in your cellars. I think we ought to film them and put them on as a really good sort of, horror come sci-fi thing.
I'll have to put some new batteries in the trail cams and put them in the basement. Yes,
absolutely. But no, I understand it. It's sort of like, this is actually my space. It's not altogether, and I mean, I know you've said this to me before, the reason there are rats around Fiona's house is next door's farm.
And my own. Anywhere you have poultry, you will have rats.
Yeah.
And the farmer owns the barn that adjoins my barns, and he stores barley straw in there. Well, that's food and nesting material and everything else a rat could possibly.
And it's a bloody big barn, so it services one hell of a lot of rats.
Yes.
Whereas if it was just you and that barn wasn't there, there wouldn't be that many rats around.
No, there wouldn't.
And you wouldn't.
Which he does put poison traps down.
Yeah.
I don't really like, but.
Yeah, but at least he does something about it. But it's not. It's like putting a Band-Aid over your cut, not sorting out how you got the cut in the first place.
No, I don't mind rats per se. We've had rats in the family before now, but I just object to finding that they've chewed the drainage hose off the washing machine
3 times.
Yeah, well, twice. And I really object to the fact that I walked to the bathroom the other night without turning the lights on because the moon was full and nearly stood on a rat in my hallway. And I was like, really, just bugger off and live outside. You've got barns. I don't live in your barn. You shouldn't live in my house.
So this is a sort of negotiate thing altogether between, which will eventually work out.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've known Fiona so long, I know it'll work out. It's just at the moment we're in the sort of
yes, we're butting heads like rams.
But it will. But to go back to the thing is, you own your property, your small holding, in the sense that you paid money for it to somebody else.
According to a piece of paper in the land registers, yes.
Yes. But one day you won't.
The horses don't think I own it.
Yeah. But one day you won't own. So the piece of paper will transfer somewhere else.
I've only owned it for a couple of years.
Yeah. And in that sense, you know how you hear people saying, sort of my mug and my phone and, all this kind of shit. And it isn't that. It's just, I'm here, and because of the way the current laws and economy goes, and I haven't actually found a way of fighting it yet. I go along with the process of paying some of this money to somebody else for the privilege of being guardian to it. Fine. Okay. I pay rent for this house. sort of thing. And no, I don't own it. In a sense, it's perhaps a little easier in that I am guardian to it, but I give it all of my love and attention. It doesn't, you know, the fact that I didn't pay money for it and it's not an investment, then that doesn't stop me giving it all my love and attention. And, you know, I've usually got a cat who lives with me, sometimes more than one. And she's not my cat. If anything, I'm her human. She's the cat who's chosen to live with me. And it was the same, you know, you've got 4 horses, 2 dogs, 1 rabbit at the moment. Can't remember how many hens.
14 hens, 4 geese, 7 ducks, and 10 ferrets.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're not yours in the sense of owning.
No. They're mine in the sense I pay all the vet bills. But then they have no way of earning money to pay vet bills, and they needed veterinary attention. So,
and you decided to take them on, so that's part of the contract.
Yes.
You know. Like,
but no, I don't regard myself as owning them. They're not mine.
No.
Not you know, not like the same way you could say, well, these are, you know, this is my hair.
Yeah. Well, it is at the moment until it falls out or I have it or whatever kind of thing. But yes, you know, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, I mean, you've got a daughter, but you don't own her.
No.
And the same.
The fact that she's a highly independent young woman.
Absolutely. Very good at it too. But it's not my daughter sort of thing.
It's difficult because there are 2 ways of using these pronouns.
There are.
And in the sense of the reciprocal relationship, she's my daughter because I'm her mother.
Yeah.
That holds true.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that side of it.
No.
But the possessive pronoun, I own her, that we need to reject utterly.
Utterly. And we don't, you know, it's not my husband or my wife, except in the sense that you've chosen to be together.
Yes. Which
is like the mother-daughter relationship, but you're not quite the same because there's nothing sort of biological in there. But this is a choice that you've made, and a choice that you can unmake, of course, anytime you feel like it. But he's not mine, and, you know, I'm not his in that sense.
Yes, and I would dearly love to reclassify the so-called possessive pronouns as reciprocal relationship pronouns. But it'll never work.
The only trouble is, it's such a long bloody word, nobody can spell it for a start. And it's sort of like, I think you just have to rethink in your own head, you know, as we obviously have, the whole idea of what mine and my actually means.
The other side of redoing this is it changes the way in which you approach every other thing in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You no longer walk up to a horse and go, stupid horse, I want you to walk this way. And the horse says, no, I don't want to walk that way.
If you're lucky and it's not George, otherwise he bites you.
Well, it becomes no longer appropriate to punish that animal for not doing what you want. And you have to learn a whole new vocabulary of negotiation and respect.
Yes.
And I would like you to walk this way. Would you walk this way? You don't want to walk this way. Okay, no is actually a valid answer.
And taking it back into the children in a sort of much more general sense, you're my child, you're not going to do that.
Which happens far too frequently.
Probably all the bloody time. Now all the poor little buggers are stuck with things like SATs and shit. And, you know, you're supposed to learn this, do it. You know.
We actually had this discussion with Michelle. I think she was 5.
Good girl.
Because my mother used to be a teacher before she married, in the days when you got married and you stopped working because your husband had the job. So she was a teacher until then. And when Michelle came along, Mum sat down with her and started teaching her maths and English from about 2.5 onwards. With the result that when Michelle went to primary school, she was already literate and numerate. And her teachers there went, no, you can't do it that way. You have to do it this way. This is the way in the book. This is the only right way to get to that answer. You got to that answer from a different place. It's wrong.
Yep.
And we had this quite complicated, long discussion with my 5-year-old daughter that basically turned out with, it doesn't matter how you get there. And I think it was somewhat underlined when I went in at the next parents' evening and corrected the English teacher's grammar on the blackboard in front of everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, again, this is hierarchy thing. They don't know everything.
No.
And if you get to the same answer, it doesn't matter how you got there.
And actually,
it wasn't a complete fluke.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that you can, well, if you're an intelligent teacher, because I was trained as a teacher too, amongst other things, if you're an intelligent teacher, you can sort of tell when it was a fluke.
Yes.
Well,
you just give them another one and they get it wrong.
Yeah, that's usually the best way. And you, right, okay, fine. And
when you do that, when you sit down and have that conversation with a small child, and it does come down to, this is not your teacher's life to tell you how to live it. It's not my life to tell you how to live it.
No.
This is your life. You need to live it.
And what you can do as a parent, as a teacher, as anybody has anything to do with the kid or any kids, is sort of like, well, when I did that last time, this happened.
Yes.
And so you take ownership that it's just what happened to you, which is important, not that it always happens every time. And B, you're offering them something, and it's becoming a bit storytelling, because the best way to teach anybody is in a story.
Yes. Everybody
remembers stories. That's why most people read newspapers, because they want a story.
Yep.
And what do you call them? A story. So you're giving them something, and you're not stuffing it down their throats. You're just saying this is possible. On this thing of ghastly things like poor Michelle and the stupid maths teacher,
yes.
My mate Kim down the road and her friend Jill, they've got a little, well, it's not Kim's grandchild, it's Jill's grandchild, little girl, she's 6. And she's very bright, and she's quite cute, and I hate kids, and I think she's quite cute. But then I don't have to be there all the time, so that's fine. And anyway, of course, she's been homeschooled since forever. Went back yesterday. And Granny has been helping, that's Jill, and so is Kim to some extent, with the schooling. Because Mum and Dad have got a lot of things to do, because they're part of the business down there. And so this little 6-year-old was told that she had to learn comparative adjectives.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you had to think twice.
Yes.
Well, there knows what a comparative adjective is then. Go on. I had to think twice. Paul sort of went,
As you sort of work it through in your head and you go, comparative, that means you're comparing things. Adjective, okay. Right, fine, I know what those are. So it does take that time. And you can't expect a 6-year-old.
And she probably couldn't spell comparative anyway. I'm not sure. I probably could. Or adjectives come to that. But if you sort of say to her, that princess is beautifuler than the other princess, you can start telling her things, showing her things.
And if you're really lucky, she'll turn around and go, no, that word doesn't exist. More beautiful.
Well, she didn't, because she obviously, like most kids of that age, and I remember it myself, I thought beautifuler was a brilliant word. I still do.
It does follow all the rules of English, accepted English word formation.
And it sounds nice. That was my thing. And I would be quite capable of using it in a novel, probably in speech, if I felt like it. But there are all sorts of, and apparently this poor kid was supposed to learn it, as to how many syllables the word had, whether you added on ER or you said more in front of it.
You have to learn that. I mean,
At 6?
in the sense of that's treating your native language like learning it as a foreign language.
Yes.
You learn it by understanding all the rules that you just grow up with. They're impressed in your brain from infancy.
Yeah. And this is what, this is what the hierarchy of teacher and of teachers sort of say. Oh, the other thing, apparently, they're taught this. I haven't seen an example of it yet. Apparently, they're taught to write, certainly in Shropshire, in this weird script, which looks a little bit like Elizabethan English, i.e. you can't tell an F from an S.
That whenever anyone puts that sort of thing in front of me, I am carried irresistibly back to my student days.
Of course.
Yeah.
You'll have to explain that, though. People might not understand.
I had, for my undergraduate dissertation, I chose the history of the horse in Gaelic Scotland from 1745 to 1945, which involved reading the statistical accounts of Scotland.
Yes, I get it.
And
they're all written in.
Well, they're printed in that. I read them for so long, I began to think with a lisp. I read every single Gaelic-speaking county description in 2 sets of statistical accounts. And oh my, it permanently scarred my brain.
And yet, this is what people are telling them. And apparently, I don't think this happened to, she's called Megan too, this kid. I think it happened to one of her classmates. She'd written something, as best she could in this script. They're trying to get 6-year-old kids who joined up writing as well. Please, what? And and why does it matter anyway? Don't go there. Anyway, this kid has sort of written something down, and the teacher sort of looked at a word which had sort of an F. I think it was fast, so it was F-A-S-T, and the teacher told that's sassed, and she said, no, it's fast.
Teacher is illiterate.
And the teacher said, you've got that wrong. Instead of asking her how to spell it and seeing whether she just hadn't formed the letters as clearly as the teacher would have liked.
Those words, you've got that wrong, are like a brick in front of mental development.
Well, like a brick on you.
But they stop you in your tracks. Yeah. And they prevent you learning.
Very occasionally, they might be appropriate, but it's only very occasionally, and I can't think of an example off the top of my head.
I can't often think of an example either. But again, that comes back to my relationship with animals. Because you have to stop thinking, that dog got it wrong. No, it didn't.
That dog got it completely dog-shaped.
Yes.
You didn't understand.
Yeah. If you set it up wrong, so that the dog saw a better way of doing things than the one you thought was better, that's not the dog's fault. It's your fault.
I was reading something the other day because Kellen adores, she's got to be absolutely adoring Paul half the time. And it's really lovely because as soon as he comes into the living room in the morning, she's up on one of the chairs and standing there going, my turn, strokes, now. and it's lovely. And so first of all, she puts her head up and sort of like this while he strokes her head. Then she turns around and so he strokes down her back and pulls her tail very gently. And that is because that excites the area over the base of your spine where your tail is. And I should be slightly rude here. If you've ever been making love and your partner has done this to you, you'll know exactly what it feels like. Anyway, obviously, she's, wow, this is fantastic. And her paws sort of slide like this. So she sort of slides and bangs her chin on the top of the chair, which is quite funny. And then she gets so excited, she turns around and goes, nip.
Yes. On
his hand. Now, she's not being mean or vicious. It's like a love bite. She's like, oh, that was so good. And yet people apparently, well, at least they are asking, which was something, at least on this sort of cat thing that I was reading, why is my cat doing this? What have I done? And then, well, you've overexcited her. So if you overexcite her, just put up with it. Try and explain to her that you don't have fur and your skin's not the same, and so could she do it very much more gently than she would to another cat, because cats do this. Many animals bite when they make love or when they get excited. And don't watch ferrets, that really will put you off. You know, it's like when she did it the first time to me, she did dig her teeth in, and you saw a couple of the marks, and she'd actually drawn a little bit of blood, and I'd say, ow, like that. And she went, oh, I didn't mean to hurt you. And all I did was, ow. And she knew what that
I've always
meant.
done that with puppies.
Yeah, exactly.
Puppies come along and they've got incredibly sharp little teeth, and they mouth everything.
Of course.
And yes, other puppies are much tougher than human hounds. So I yelp at them. Immediately they're, oh, sorry. I'll be careful the next time. And they do.
And Kellen does. I mean, she doesn't. I'm sure if I scared her or anything like that, I think she'd dig her teeth in and I'd be in trouble.
Yes.
Because she can quite cheerfully crunch a rabbit's head. So goodness knows what my fingers would be like. But, you know, as long as I don't terrify her or anything like that, it's all play. So I have to learn what play is. And I don't own her. I don't tell her how to be, you know, like a humanized cat. She's a cat. I learn how cats do it. And I accommodate myself to that.
I've recently been discussing one of my bunny rabbits with someone on Facebook. And this takes us back to exactly the same thing, because the rabbit in question was my old friend Konyanak.
Oh.
Now, Konyan came into my life as a road accident. I found him at the side of the road. He'd been hit by a car. He was about that big. I picked him up and put him in my coat pocket. He was that small. And he grew up with so much character. He was absolutely rabbit. Quintessential. You know, he was prayer rabbit in rabbit form. Which is why I called him Rabbit, which is what Konyanak means. But I never tried to make him like a pet rabbit. He was Rabbit. He knew how to be Rabbit. He shared my life on his terms. Now, I couldn't put him in a cage. He just refused to eat. And until you learn that you have to share your life on their terms, not yours, you're not treating them as equals. You're not treating them with respect.
And it's, I mean, I hate the word pet anyway. We both do. And our animals are none of them ever pets. They're animals who've chosen to live with us. But you have to, I mean, and again, we both found this with all of our animals, is that they choose to live with you. A little bit like you and the rats at the moment. Let's not go there. And they choose to live with you, but you choose also to live with them because you take them on. You agree to the thing. They say, I want to come home with you, and you go, yeah, okay, let's do it. And so they also have to sort of get the hang of, there are some things that, like, you know, I will learn what biting is about, but she learns how not to bite too hard. There are times when I'm right in the middle of doing some work and she actually wants me. And it's a bit like kids again. You can sort of tell when they need you now. You drop everything and you do it. And they actually just, oh, I'm bored, I want some attention, or whatever kind of thing. And you go, not now, my time, busy. And she does. And if I say, not now, you get some look at. And she goes off and sits somewhere else, or talks to Paul, or goes outside and catches a mouse or something. And she leaves me alone. So you negotiate. And the negotiate isn't all you giving to the animal. It's like you saying, I can't actually handle this. How are we going to work it?
And I've done that with my big horse George here. George and I have a complicated history.
Yes.
He is very, very big. He's actually comes from one of the biggest breeds in the country. And he's not a small horse. He is almost a metric ton in weight. He looms over me. And he came to me with PTSD. And we've had to negotiate our boundaries because he could kill me so easily if he tried.
Quite easily, yeah.
And he is fear aggressive.
Mm.
He's been very badly scared. So if anything startles him, his immediate reaction is defense, lash out.
Yeah.
I have scars that I'll carry for the rest of my life from George when he's lashed out, when he's frightened. That's not his fault. And I don't hold it against him.
Mm.
But we have had to negotiate over the past nearly 3 years now.
Mm.
If you're standing like that, is it okay for me to do this? May I do that?
Mm.
And very often the answer is no, you may not.
Mm.
But we are now beginning to build a relationship. He actually allowed me to walk up to him when he was lying down yesterday morning, and I was allowed to scratch the top of his tail while he was lying down.
Wow.
But it did involve me actually saying to him, George, may I touch you with my hand out? May I scratch your tail?
Mm.
And he's like, grump, 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 grump. All right then.
Yeah.
And then I was allowed to do it.
Mm.
And it has to be that actual physical respect between us.
Mm. Mm. And then it comes to,
that's what we need to learn for everything.
You know, when he does sort of lash out and he's been frightened, and you have to sort of like talk with him about the fright. What was it that frightened you?
Mm.
And actually, I'm really hurting now. I mean, I remember that.
Yes.
Bite on your back.
Oh God, yes.
And George, I really wasn't trying to hurt you. I know it scared you, but you know, but actually, I'm really hurting. Then he actually came and gave you some healing after it, didn't he?
He did.
So, you know, he understood.
I was still black and blue for a week.
Well, yeah, quite. Took a great lump out around her waist and the top of her buttock.
He bit me just below my lowest rib on the right hand side. And it was a week before the bruising was done.
I showed you the scars. We were doing a Zoom with this is my body. You know? Honestly, we're not.
It was colourful.
Anyway, it was.
But then you have to remember that a horse's jaws actually produce more bite force than a shark.
Mm.
He was only defending himself.
Mm. And he was scared about something, which had been a scary thing before we ever came to Fiona.
Yes.
And it just sort of came back to mind, didn't it, at that moment?
He had a flashback.
Yeah.
Anyone who's had
very PTSD, of course.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
His flashbacks are getting less frequent, but he'll probably never be 100% safe.
Mm. Mm.
And I will always have to go to him and say, may I touch your foot? No, not today. Okay, we won't then.
Yeah. Yeah.
May I scratch your shoulders instead?
And hierarchy usually takes right away from respect.
Yes.
Because it's like, I've got to curtsy to the Queen because that's a mark of respect. But I don't respect her.
Exactly.
And if you read any sort of Regency romancy stuff, because it's quite fun sometimes, they were able to bow or curtsy to each other in a sense that went finger to you.
Yes.
And they could actually do it like without the mouth job.
Yes.
And so you think, you know, this is always there. And you know, like standing up when somebody comes in the room or something, it just means you've got to hobble to your feet thinking, I don't care.
Yes. And these are all imposed. This is a social imposition.
Yeah.
Because sometimes somebody needed to underline their own sense of ego.
And not only that, but to make sure that these dangerous peasants, because we're always dangerous peasants, actually knew their place and wouldn't rebel.
And not just the peasants.
No.
Just the peasants. Once you get to the top of the heap, you have to keep everybody down.
Exactly. So there's all this courtier stuff happening.
Yes.
And it happens in companies, because there are courtiers in companies just the same as there are in the royal family.
Yes.
And there's a lovely Sean Connery film about him being a detective working with this Japanese company. which I really enjoy. And it really shows it. And it just shows that, I mean, the Japanese still have quite a lot of this kind of hierarchy, very visible. We have it, but it isn't usually quite so visible as it is there. So it was very well shown. But you walk into a boardroom of a big firm in Britain or in America or anywhere else and watch the pecking order. If you've got a pecking order, you've got a hierarchy, you've got a problem.
I have worked in an office and dealt with the office politics, and it did not go the way people thought it was going to go at all.
No, it doesn't.
But once you break through that boundary that says, I don't have to always accept the shit that you give me.
No.
People are actually usually fine.
And
but you do have to break
through much better.
Yes. You get a much healthier relationship. And that is something that we all need, is to break through this paradigm of unhealthy dominance politics.
Which we have in the family, in the home,
yes.
in the workplace, probably even in the supermarket queue.
Oh, yes.
You know, I mean, probably most people have been to a supermarket, you know,
and on the road,
standing on your line where your distance thing is, and then watch the people who barge you and shove you.
You see it when people are driving as well.
Yeah.
In my job at the moment, I work part-time driving a minibus for the local firm, local factory. One of the workers came past me as I was bringing a busload of his colleagues in. He drives an Audi Quattro, so he can come through the 30 zone at 55. Little does he know that the police shop on the corner now has his registration. Thank you very much. I don't care if he is a production manager. So, you know, exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And this is...
we have to learn to respect each other and ourselves and our boundaries with every other living thing.
Yeah. And a production manager is not a superior being.
No.
The title manager means you should be able to manage something. Usually they can't. Usually it's a title that he's a manager, right, he's useless. But all it is what the word means. The fact that people give it, and it's not just the people who carry the title manager, it's the people around them and the people underneath them who give that privilege, that private law.
Yes. We have to break that. We have to start holding people responsible.
And we have to, in order to do that, we have to hold ourselves responsible.
Yes.
Because you can't do it to somebody else if you're there fucking it up yourself.
No. So we need self-respect and we need self-responsibility. And only then can you stand as an equal with anyone.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I learned quite a long time ago was don't buy into something that somebody tells you.
And that includes this podcast, by the way.
Quite.
Prove it for yourself.
You are listening to two people's opinions. We're very opinionated.
And everybody, like, you know what they say, our souls and opinions, everyone's got one.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And so you don't have to believe us either, but rather on the lines of going way back into our conversation about talking to a kid about something. Is, well, last time I did this, this happened. We're offering you a view. We're offering you, how's about you think about this and question it? Because it's really important.
Yes.
That mechanism of, why am I doing this? Why do I feel that when I'm with this person? And how does me feeling that fuck up the relationship we're supposed to be having?
Yes.
And then look at the other person, and instead of just thinking fucking arsehole, which, you know, what wants to do, well, right after you thought fucking arsehole, because thinking that in the first place is fine. is go, what's actually going on for that person?
Mm.
Sometimes you can ask them, but sometimes you can't ask them. You have to do some working out and general dancing around the edges in order to get close enough that they dare to trust you with what's going on.
Yes.
Which is again like Kellen and George.
It's taken 2.5 years to win George's trust so far.
It hadn't taken that long with Kellen, but then she wasn't. She's such a tough survivor anyway. Yeah. It was.
But George is a sensitive little flower underneath.
He's a sensitive, huge thing. He's not little.
He's a baby.
He's a huge, sensitive, ginger little baby.
Yes.
Baby. But yeah, so you've got to do that.
Yeah.
And so really think about hierarchies. If you're that sort of person, and unfortunately both of us are, go and, like, you know, with the word privilege, go and look up the word hierarchy. What does it mean? Where does it come from? What's its history? Looking up word history is really useful, actually. You start thinking, hey, I think I won't say that anymore. It sounds like shit. And actually look into it to see how it happened, how it's come about, because it will tell you an awful lot. And then get into the whole idea of what is ownership? Why does it matter to me? Does it need to matter to me?
And to bring us back to another important point here, once you dispense with the idea of ownership, you no longer have the need for conspicuous consumption.
Very true.
And that brings us back to the causes of poverty. And poverty is one of the biggest problems we have in this planet.
And again, actually, poverty didn't exist until we got farming.
No.
Neither did a hell of a lot of the diseases like diabetes and arthritis and all sorts of things like that. And I believe cancer comes in there as well. Certainly prevalent cancer comes in there.
Quite a lot of cancers which are certainly influenced by lifestyle and diet, yes.
Indeed. And so it's like, really think about that. Because if I don't own anything, and, you know, Fiona needs some, I don't know, some more meat or something, and I've got some, oh, here you are.
Yeah. And you no longer have the, you know, the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gateses going, I've got more money than the average country. I can do what I want. You know, it doesn't matter what you do with that money. It doesn't matter if you do good with that money. You've got it by killing other people and by destroying other lives on this planet, human and non-human.
And most of it does seriously come from destroying non-human lives.
Yes.
We never get told about that.
No.
You know, okay, go right back to it. You've got a farmer, and this is what probably sort of happened at the beginning. And, oh, I think I need another field of wheat here. So he knocks down these trees, he takes out these hedges, he completely changes what the land grows. What about everybody who lives there?
Yeah.
And that was quite possibly, you know, say it's about sort of a 20-acre field or something. It could have been millions of beings who lived there.
Yeah. You do see the occasional picture pop up on social media of an orangutan clinging to the last shattered remains of a tree in a field of devastation.
I can't bear it, no.
But it's not just the orangutan. The orangutan happens to look reasonably humanish. So it appeals to us because we can relate to it. But the billions of insects, the earthworms, the mycelium within the soil that's just been wrecked, all those trees, right? Trees can host hundreds of species. If you kill, you know, 6,000 trees, that's millions of species you've just destroyed.
And they have nowhere to live.
And they had every right to live where they were.
Absolutely. And you actually didn't need that field of wheat, because actually, you know, bread is not the staff of life. It's one of the things that balls your guts up. But there you go. You won't get told that, of course, because, you know, there are all sorts of very posh firms who think that they want you to buy their shit, whatever it is, their flour.
Well, that way they can make lots of money.
Yeah. It's nothing to do with health.
If we could get rid of all that attitude,
Yeah.
if we could get back to we all share this, this planet, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you're still going to die.
Yeah.
And you're going to get shoveled in a hole in the ground or go up in smoke, just like all the rest of us.
Or just be left around and the insects will start eating you and then everything else will have a munch.
Back to Ilkley Moore and Bartat there. One of our favourite teaching songs.
Absolutely. Do go and listen to the words of On Ilkley Moore Bartat. It tells you exactly how life is. But
and to some extent, as an ex-Christian, having brought up a Catholic, yes, dust to dust, ashes to ashes.
Yeah. And it is. And I wasn't brought up as any form of Christian, although I was involved in all sorts of Christian things, because actually our vicar was totally he and my dad used to chat paganism and history and Christ knows what, at least twice a week. But it is, and you go back to, and okay, let's throw in another one. You go back almost to Joni Mitchell. We are stardust. And the atoms that make up the soil, that make up the bugs, that make up the coronavirus and everything else. And a bit of you was probably once a bit of coronavirus, or the things before coronavirus, or whatever. We are everything. And not just in the sort of shamanic, new agey kind of way. We literally were.
Yes, and I'm going to take a little moment out here to say that new agey stuff is actually very, very old agey stuff.
Well, it is properly spoken of and used. Yes, and it's the original.
But yes, we are one with everything.
We are, literally. Yeah.
But we need to remember it. We need to live it.
And it's not something that I feel, it's not something that lives in your head, as you say, is you live it.
Yes.
You know that this, the skin on this finger, which will probably be quite different by tomorrow because it falls off every day, and that's what your Hoover picks up, is part of something else, and it may well have been part of the lettuce I was eating last week.
Yes.
And next week it might be part of, or come the summer, it might be part of the tomato I eat.
Yes. And, also remember your own internal. Yeah. It's species that we host internally. Mm. There are more bacteria in the average human than there is human. Mm. By a long way.
And, well, hopefully there are, because if you've got enough and you haven't been putting poison down so that they all turn into nasties, then you will be really fit. Yes. Because the bacteria look after you.
Yes. And, even thinking of COVID, there are viruses which feed on bacteria.
Yeah. And they're not wrong and they're not evil.
No.
They're part of life. And you need to not put that Band-Aid over the wound of COVID or whatever it is. You need to sort out why COVID has appeared. And that requires an awful lot of self-knowing, self-honesty, asking. And
which is why most of the courses that we teach, when you think about it, come down. We don't teach you how to do this. We teach you to know yourself. Yeah. Because it all has to happen in here and in here before it can happen anywhere outside. And
it must truly happen in here and in your body, because your head is so well trained on messing things up. So not that heads are bad, heads are really vital. Try and but you need to bring it into all of it. And it means respecting your body, respecting the cells, respecting yourself, respecting everything that lives, respecting that tree. Actually, when you feel seriously cross, don't go out and kick a tree. It wasn't the tree's fault.
No, that's true. And just occasionally you will find the tree kicks you back.
And good for the tree if it does. So the whole of this morning, and I think we're going to shut up now.
Yes.
Is about hierarchy and ownership.
And the difference between ownership and guardianship.
Absolutely. And the fact that as soon as we can let go of this, the whole thing of poverty, and poverty is another big thing, much more than, you know, some poor sod who has to sleep in the doorway of Marks and Spencer.
Mm.
They're so interconnected, and they're all brought about by human attitudes that don't give a shit.
Yeah. And they think, I am better. Therefore, everyone else is worse.
And I can do what I want.
Yes.
On that note,
I think we stop.
we do. Go and have a cup of tea. We're going to.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. See ya.